Okay, wonderful. So my name is Vesa Wansberg. I'm the data curation analyst at the Biomedical Library. And I'm here for helping our researchers with their data management. So if you have any questions about how to organize your data, if you're interested in sharing your data's open access, or if you have any software that you would like to be exported in our Data Wednesday classes, please contact me. Today's class is going to be on REDCap, software that's used for managing variables collected as part of research projects. And our guest speaker today is Martin Ley. He's the Informatics Core Manager at the UCLA Clinical and Translational Research Center, and he's the point person at UCLA for REDCap use and training. So there is no better person to introduce REDCap to you. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end of the presentation. There is a lot of material to cover. We will have time for questions at the end, though. So we'll start our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Vasila. Hi, my name is Martin Lai. I'm with the CTRC, Clinical Translational Research Center, under the CTSI umbrella for UCLA. Today I'm going to talk about REDCap, basically explaining how it is, what it is, and how easy it is to utilize it. So REDCap is a web-based data collection tool developed by Vanderbilt University. So to use REDCap, you don't need to know any database programming or web programming. And it's currently very widely used worldwide with over 650 institutions in 55 countries and more than 66,000 projects and many users. So what are the advantages of using REDCap? It's very easy to set up. And you can set up and get going very easily. And it's secure and web-based. We use TLS encryption with our REDCap. And you can also access it from multiple sites. We have two flavors of REDCap, one internal and one external. With the external, we do not allow collection of PHI data, and with the collection, and with the external REDCap site, you can you collect data from multiple off-site locations. It's flexible and it's very customizable. I'll show you a little bit how easy it is to set it up at the end of the presentation with a very simple project. And you can make modifications all the time. It's just that there are two stages in the development of REDCap, which I will go through. It's very easy to get data in. Data can be imported via CSV files or through other means with the advanced, with the API interface. And it's very easy to get data out in various formats for supporting various statistical software like SAS, Stata, and SPSS. And all data entry and pretty much all activities of the REDCap is logged, so you can track whatever the utilization or activity is, or if you want to trace whether you have entered certain data, you can certainly go back to the log and figure it out. So what do you need to get access to REDCap here at UCLA? You will need to complete a user access request form. And then you will need to create a new project once you get access. And you will need to create the data collection forms inside that project. And then you will test the forms and surveys and make sure they are collecting the data you intend to collect. And make sure you do this with a statistician. And then after all the testing is done, then you can move the project to production. The production status is so that when you make changes to your project, the changes have to be approved. So this is one of the mechanisms that prevents you to do something that can result in data loss. So without moving the project to production, all the changes will be commenced immediately. And if you happen to do something that will corrupt or delete your data, those will not be reversible. So that's why we need you to move the project to production when you are ready to collect real data. And at that point, we will need IRB approval, CTRC application, and a project access request form for all the members. And then after your data collection is done, then you can export the collected data for data analysis. So where do you get the access request form? This is the link on the website. It's under the CTSI website. If you navigate to UCLA CTRC and in the application forms, there's one of them is the REDCap access request form. And after you submit that, you can schedule a training with me. There's going to be more resource happening with the training in the future. There's also training resource at the REDCap site. Under training resources, there's a lot of videos that you can go through. It pretty much tells you the general how to do REDCap thing. So that's part of the resource also. So what is the first thing you would want to consider when you create a new project? So the first question would be if it is a longitudinal project or a regular project. Longitudinal project is a project that you will use the same data collection form in different time points. For example, if you have a patient coming in for 3 visits and you have to use the same form for 3 times, all those visits, that's a longitudinal data collection, that's a longitudinal study. If you have just one data collection form and you will only see the patient one time, that's not a longitudinal study, that's just a basic study. There are pretty much 3 ways to conduct the data collection forms. One is a pure data collection form only. So a data collection form is used mostly when your study coordinator is going to input the data. So to access the data collection form inside REDCap, the study coordinator will need to log in, usually with the AD username and password. And then they will access the project that they have rights to. And then they will choose the study ID or enter a new study ID within that project. Then they can get to the data collection forms. So that's what we refer to as a data collection form. Now the other kind is called a survey form. A survey form basically, it is the same thing as data collection form. However, the access mechanism is different. That's why we refer them to as surveys. With a survey, it's usually targeted for study participants. They will get an email, and in that email, there's a link that directly goes to that survey form in your project. There's no authentication process. So that's the difference between survey and data collection forms. However, there's sometimes that you have a data collection form project that maybe you want to send a survey out to your participant. So with that, it's a mixture of those. It depends on which form goes first in your project. If your first form is a survey form, that renders your project as a survey project. If your first form is a data collection form, then that renders your project still a data collection form, but a hybrid with a survey function. With data collection form, usually the records are organized by study ID. That could be an auto number or a custom number that you input. However, if you're using a survey project, there's no way to change the record number. It's defined in REDCap that you have to follow the auto number order. And if you're using a data collection form with a survey hybrid, that also follows the same format as the data collection form. So it will be organized by either an auto number study ID or a custom study ID. So the survey will only have a one-to-one relationship. So there are other modules available like randomization module, auto numbering, scheduling module. If you have a longitudinal project, there's a thing called days offset that you can enter in the events. I'll explain a little bit about this later on. And then there's an auto survey invitation function which you can use for the either the survey project or the hybrid data collection form survey projects. So after you get access to REDCap, the first thing you will do is to go in, log into REDCap, and then click on the Create New Project tab. And this will bring you to this display here. Usually you will put in the project title, and the usage is usually research, and we would like you to enter it this way so that you can put in the PI name as well as the ILB number if it is already approved. If it is not approved, it's not a problem. You can still put in the PI name and just leave it blank and complete the Create REDCap Project function. So after you create a project, so these are the questions that you will need to answer. If you need to use the longitudinal project function, then you will have to enable it. And if you want to use surveys in this project, you will also have to enable it. And then you will go to the online designer after this. And you can also enable auto numbering for records if you don't want to fuss with entering the record number, defining the study ID for your study. So, so in order to create data collection forms, there are several ways to do it. One of the most simple way is to use the online graphical designer. The online graphical designer is very easy, and also inside that online graphical designer, you can download existing forms which are already developed by other institutions all over the world from the REDCap library. So it's very convenient. Or you can upload a data dictionary CSV file. A data dictionary CSV file is pretty much Excel CSV file of all your data and all your form names and what they are. So you can do it that way. If you have, usually you use the data dictionary CSV file if you already have pre-existing REDCap projects, or if you move from another institution to UCLA, then you probably have a few REDCap projects already. So that's probably the point where you want to use a CSV file. For new users, usually you go through the online designer or download forms from the REDCap library. And once you are in the online designer, so pretty much you can just click the Add Field button to add a new field, or you can click the Add Matrix of Fields. I'll explain a little bit what they are. So this is an example of a data dictionary. So this is an Excel CSV file. As you can see, there are variable field names, and then the form names, and then if there's section headers, and the field type, a field label, and choices, blah, blah, blah. So if you develop a project in REDCap, you can export this data dictionary, and you can later on import it again to another project, or if you happen to leave UCLA and go to another institution, you can still import that CSV file into the REDCap installation of your new institution. So it's very portable. And this is for a longitudinal study. So in a longitudinal study, there are arms and events. So arms is usually the stage of the study. So you have screening stage, you have maybe a testing stage, or some people just prefer to do it all in one arm. So it's totally up to you. So inside an arm, there are events. So events is pretty much like event 1 could be screening, event 2 could be visit 1, event 3 could be visit 2, and so on. And you see that the days offset in there, in this example, is all 0 because this example doesn't utilize the scheduling. If you utilize the scheduling, the days offset is going to tell the calendar how many days from the first event that your second event is going to occur. So if you're going to utilize the scheduling, make sure you enter the days offset in there. And then after you define the arms and events, then you can assign your instruments that you develop. The instrument is the data collection form. So in here is pretty much which data collection forms you're going to use for which event. So once you click on the begin editing button, all these turns into check boxes, and then you just check off which forms you use for which event. And so what type of fields are available in REDCap? So the most standard one is the text box. You can put in a lot of things in there. You can put in dates, phone numbers, email addresses. And they have a validation function in the text boxes. So you can validate for certain fields in there. Notes box, which is similar to a text box, but it allows you to enter more text into the box. Calculated field is used when you need to do some calculations on your form, either calculate the score of the form. That's the most common use for that. A yes/no choice, true/false choice. A slider is a sliding scale usually from a small number to a large number, and you can define the number yourself. Dynamic SQL is something that the administrator use if you need to link a project from link your records from one project to another project. This is where dynamic SQL comes in, and I have a slide later on to show you what it can do. Matrix of fields is similar to the multiple choice radio buttons, but it's a grouped field of those so that you don't have to put in the answer, agree, highly agree, stuff like that, many times with questions with the same answer. So that's where the matrix of fields comes in. Checkboxes are for multiple answers. The drop-down list and radio buttons are for single answers. You can upload files like PDF files or other files for other people to access in the project. So this is sometimes very useful for off-site locations. Descriptive text is pretty much like a header, or you can insert an image in there. So begin new section is kind of, usually you use this in survey. So we're going to go into more details with the text box field. So once you go into editing mode, you can see this this image on the lower right-hand corner. So the field label is the actual question itself, and the variable name is actually the variable that your data is going to be held in. So that's the same name as in the database field. So when you export your data is going to be under this variable name. So it's not going to be under the field name. So usually you will want to define this variable name very carefully, because this variable name cannot be repeated in your REDCap project. And usually I recommend people use the form initial in the front so that they know that question belongs to which form, because when you export, your data is going to be a long row of data, and sometimes it's just hard to picture where that variable is in all the different forms in your project. And then in here you see the validation. You can validate the date, time, email, integers, see if it's an integer and then a number. And then if it is an integer or number, you can specify a minimum or maximum. In this example, it's a radio button example. So this is how you define your choices. You don't have to start your choice by 1. You know, you can start with 0 or 4. You know, it's up to you. But it's just the value of that choice associated with that choice. So you can have anything you want in there. And this is a single answer only. Okay, so this is an example of a calculated field which we will utilize in our mini example at the end. So when you have 2 variables in your form and you want to do some calculation on those variables, you can use the calculated field, and you can formula the calculated field like this. Or if you have other formulas, you can click on the How do I format the equation link, and it will give you a lot of information on how you can formulate your formula to be correctly formulated. If it is not correctly formulated, when you save it, sometimes I would say usually REDCap will give you a heads up telling you that the formula is incorrect. So you can go back in and make the changes. Or if it doesn't prompt you at that time, it will definitely prompt you at the time of your data entry when you do testing. That's why we emphasize always test your forms before you roll it into production. And we are looking at the dynamic SQL here. This is only doable by the REDCap administrators because it involves some SQL programming, and we don't expect ordinary users to have that knowledge. And so in this project, this is part 1 of the project. In this project, we have a demographics. It's pretty much, this project is for storing demographics of people. So you see on the lower left corner, you see a lot different sets of study IDs in there, and they refer to the demographics information. So in our next project, which is a separate project, in this project, we are storing the lab information for those people. And the lab samples, they probably won't come in the same order as the study participants' visits. So what happens here is this project will have this independent ID for the sample tracking, but you want to have something that links back to the demographics project. So this is where the dynamic query comes in. So you see on the lower right corner, lower left corner, sorry, there's the SQL query there, and it's going to pull from our first project. Previously, it pulls the study ID as well as part of the identifier. So in this way, this project is linked to the demographics project before by the study ID. So although it displays some part of the identifier and the study ID, only the study ID is stored in the record. So, So when you export the two projects, you can link the results by the study ID together. So that's one very useful use for the dynamic SQL field. And this is the matrix of field. You can see that it's basically a radio button field, although you can have checkbox field in there also. So basically, you just have a set of answers for the radio button field, and then you keep adding the field label and the variable name to this matrix. So you will only have to put in the answer one time, and then you keep adding the questions. So that saves you some development time so that you don't have to copy and paste the answers again and again. And you just define a matrix group name, and that's all you need for this, as well as the variable name, or a matrix header if you prefer. Branching logic. So what happens when you want to hide questions and only show up when people answer a previous question certain way? So in this example, if they answer, so you will not see this question, are you married, unless they answer, if they are bisexual, yes. Unless they answer that, otherwise you won't see this question, are you married. So in the branching logic section, you just, the easiest way is to drag the choice from above. So there's a choice, are you bisexual? Yes. And then are you bisexual? No. So once you drag the yes over there, when they answer yes, they will see this question, are you married? If they answer no, they will not see this question, and they will go to the next question. So that's branching logic. Piping. So this is a fairly new feature. It allows you to inject data you put in or you choose, the text data that you choose, into a future question. So in this example, I have a first name here. So in the develop form mode, in the upper right corner, you see date of birth for, and then the variable name. And then in the gender here, the variable name is sex. So I bring down the being sex. So what's going to happen is the result is below on the lower right corner. So when you put in first name as Martin, so the date of birth for, it turns the first name into my answer. This is instant. So, and then when I choose male in the gender, which is contained in the variable sex, it says being male. So you can see it grabs the text answer from the radio button into my next question. So that's pretty much how piping works. It's very useful for some surveys and data collection forms. And so what are the ways of sending out surveys? It really depends on if your first instrument is a survey. If your first instrument is a survey, there are pretty much two ways to send it out. One is through a general URL that you will send out to the participant yourself. So you will be provided a general link to your survey form in REDCap, which you can enclose an email, do a mass email. So that's one way to do it, and doing it that way will not let you track who has responded to your survey or not. So you will have to check inside REDCap to see who answered your survey, if you know the participants at all. And then there's another way is you add the participants to the send to list one by one. So if you send it out this way, you can track who has answered your survey. Although once you get to the data, you wouldn't know who answered. unless you add certain identifier fields in there. Like if you want to collect the email, you have to set up a question in your survey, ask them to put in the email. Otherwise, the survey is pretty much anonymous, although you know who answered, but if you look at the data, you won't be able to tell. The data is all going to be listed like participant 1, participant 2. So that's the case when your first instrument is a survey in your project. So that's why we consider that a survey project. So if the first instrument is not a survey, so you can utilize the automatic survey invitation method, in which you designate a text box field in an instrument somewhere in your project to be an email field. And then you will enable the designate an email field to use for invitations to survey participants. You will have to enable that function and then choose that particular text box field as your email field so that you can send automated survey invitations. So there are certain conditions that you can send out the automated survey invitations. You can send it out when a certain survey is completed, or if a certain form is completed, or if they answer a question in a certain form, certain way. You can all set it up, and you can set up the time when that invitation will go out. You can set it up to go out like 3 days after they answer so and so, and etc. And then obviously you have to activate these automated surveys. So it's a pretty flexible way to sending out surveys. So after all your data collection forms and stuff is done, how do you test your instrument? So you will go to your left side of the menu tab in the REDCap and click Edit Records. If you happen to choose an automated numbering system, you just click on Add New Record. Otherwise, you will have to enter an existing ID, like this example in the top right corner. You can make up any ID on your own if you don't use the auto numbering function. Or you can import using the data import template. So you can choose whether you want to import the data in rows or in columns. So they're the same thing. You just export this template, and then you fill in the template, and then you import it back to your project. So that's another way to test your project. And after testing your project, you want to export it and see whether the data you are collecting is what you're expecting. Sometimes it ends up different way. So you can go to the data export, and you will export the raw data if you're wanting to see your data. The labels just give you the variable names, so you will want to export the raw data. And this is what I'm explaining with the logging, the audit trail. So as you can see in this example, I can retrieve the logs by certain users. So you can extract the log from your project, and you can see who happened to enter data, or who happened to modify your data, and so on. So reports. It's very easy to generate reports, but you also have to build your reports like you build your data collection forms. So on the top right corner is an image of how you build your reports. Pretty much you name the field that you want to know or care about. You want to know if they are a certain value. You can use the operators to define your threshold. And then if you want to know all the values, you can just add that field in there. So you add several fields, and then you define a report name, and that will be your report. So usually there's a few reports inside each project, either to track data quality or stuff. And then after all these things are done and you're ready to collect real data, so you need to move your project to production status. And you will go into the Setup tab, and it's at the very bottom of the choices. You can click on Move Project to Production, and that will trigger a request to myself or other administrators. We will look at your project, and at the same time, you will need to submit IRB approval, CTRC application, if you haven't already done so. And inside that submission, you also want to indicate whether you want to erase your test data. That's a checkbox that you can check off. After moving to production status, then you can start collecting your real data. So what's the difference between a development mode and a production mode? So those are the basic two modes inside REDCap. So in development mode, you can make any changes you want. They won't be, those changes will not go to me. It will not be approved. I mean, it doesn't have to go through an approval process. So as I said before, when you're collecting real data, you really don't want that mechanism in there, because potentially pretty much all the projects in REDCap that I've seen, they will make changes in the production status. So if your project is not in production status and you're collecting real data, there's a very high chance that the changes you make will corrupt your data or totally erase your data. And it's also not compliant to collect real data when you're not in the production status mode. So that's really important to move your project to production status when you're collecting real data. So what happens when you want to make changes when you're in production mode? So you can go to the setup and go into the draft mode. And once you're in the draft mode, it doesn't look any different than in the development mode. You still go into your data collection forms and make the changes. However, the changes that you make are not immediately. It will not be committed immediately. You will have to click on Submit Changes for Review button after you've done all the changes, and then those changes are on hold until I approve it. Usually it will be approved. However, when situations when the data is not approved or will have to communicate with you are usually deletion of data collection forms, or deletion of data collection fields, or changing the order of the radio buttons. For example, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 in your radio button choices, and you change the choice of 4 to something else, and then you move that something else to 5, those changes will corrupt your data, because REDCap will not go back to your previous data and change your choices. So if you've done something like that, you will corrupt your previously collected data. So for now, I'm going to start to do a simple exercise for you. You can just watch and see how easy it is for me to just develop a simple exercise. So in this exercise, we're going to have a project with 2 visits. So it's going to be a longitudinal project, because we're going to be using the visit form in all visits, but we're going to just use the screening form in the first visit. So, thank you. So I'm going to go into my REDCap, and I'm going to show you how to create a new project. So you will click on Create New Project, put in a title name, and the purpose of this project is research. name of the PI. And then if you have your IRB number, you can put it in now, or if you don't have it, you can put it in when you move your project to production. You can go back to this and modify it at the time of production. So with this, I'm just going to create an empty project. So since I'm using the external REDCap, so it tells you that you shouldn't be collecting any PHI in there. So I agree. Okay, so now I'm inside my new project. So the first thing I want to do is, because I know this is a longitudinal project, I want to enable the longitudinal data collection function. And I want to use auto number because I don't want to mess with putting in the study ID. So after this is done, I'm going to go into my online designer. So you see there's already a template here, but it shouldn't have anything besides the study ID. So I'm going to rename it just for our purpose. I'm going to rename it to screening. And then I'm going to go inside that form. And I'm just going to be collecting email and gender in there. So this is record ID. You can rename it to anything you want, but we're just going to keep it as is. So for email field, it's going to be a text box. So I'm just going to call this email. Validation, I want to make sure people are putting in email, so I want to validate against email, so save. And then next I want to add a radio button for the gender. So single answer radio button. And I'm just going to designate a 1 for male and a 2 for female. Okay, so I'm done with this screening form. So I'm going to go back and create my visit form. So create a new instrument. And I'm going to call it visit form. And inside that visit form, I'm going to have a height field, which is a text box. And I'm also going to have a weight field. And I want to calculate the BMI. So I want to put in a calculated field in there. Just going to call it BMI. And in the equation, we want to formulate that as weight. Oh, in my previous view? Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. We'll correct that in a minute. Thank you for pointing it out. So height, the square of height. and it should tell me their error. So let's see. I couldn't see it. This is too small. Do you remember what I spelled it as? Oh, okay, thank you. So to save time, I'm just going to spell it wrong here. Syntax. Oh, I left out a bracket. So as you can see, this keyboard is not very typing friendly. Okay, so we finally got that in. So the last thing that we need to do is to go back and define our events. So we're just going to keep it in one arm. So I'm just going to rename it as screening. And visit 1. I'm just going to put 0. So that's our arms, and we're going to designate instruments for my events. So we click on Begin Editing. We want the screening form in only the screening, but we want the visit form in both visits. So once we've done this, we're ready to test out our project. So we go into Edit Records. So since this is auto-numbered, we click Add New Record. So you can see this grid is our data entry grid. So the red denotes incomplete form. So we're going to click on the screening form. So we're going to enter the email. And choose the gender. And I'm going to change it to complete. So as you can see, it turns green. So next time we go back into it, so we know that this form has been completed. So how you want to use this red, yellow, and green is up to you. Some people, they use the yellow for identifying some other conditions instead of unverified. So it's pretty much up to you how you want to use the color code. And then we go into the visit form. So height, I'm just going to put in 5, and it should give me a calculation. So I'm going to mark that as complete. So when the person comes back to the next visit, then I can go back into this data grid, and then I know that they've previously come for the screening and the first visit, and now they're in the second visit. So I will complete the second visit. Maybe the height doesn't change, but the weight, maybe they change. So that's it. I'm done with this participant. So I'm not sure if the other people can see it, but you can go to the data export tool and export all data now. It's going to be in an Excel file. And this is just a reminder that if you do use the REDCap project, please cite the CTSI grant in your publications. And then you can export the raw data. So this is what the data looks like. So you can see the event name, and then the visit form, and if the form is completed. So this is how easy it is to use REDCap, and I built this project within 10 minutes. But it's a very simple project, but If you have more complicated project, most time spent will be in your form development. So you don't have to worry about your data and stuff.
I'm just going to share this with you.
Oh, okay, sure. So Vasila is going to share this Excel spreadsheet with the people that are looking off-site. So at this point is the end of my presentation. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So if your data is not complete or unverified, when you're doing the export, that record still will be exported, right? I mean, because you have the green dot, yellow dot, and red dot.
Yeah, whatever you put in, it's still going to export. It doesn't
so
matter.
It's not only export the green dots.
No, no. But there's another thing called verified variables in REDCap, which you will want to use when you use the internal REDCap for identifying PHI data. So anything you collect with PHI, for example, name, MRN, you want to mark it as an identifier so that when you export the data, you have the choice to de-identify it. So that's a very good question. Yes?
Thank you, Martin, for your presentation. We're
Thank you.
currently using REDCap in our study.
Okay.
We have a field that's a calculated field, like
Okay.
the BMI.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose I have to go back and change the equation.
Mm-hmm.
It won't change the previously entered
No.
data, right? Is there a way that you can direct REDCap to recalculate that calculated?
It depends on how many records you have in there, because a calculated field cannot be imported. So if you change it midway during your production, the easiest way is to change it and then go back to the records that go back to the records before the change, and then hit save again. So that way you can trigger the thing to recalculate again. Yeah, you're welcome.
And also,
Yeah.
if it's a multi-site study,
Mm-hmm.
do your other sites need to have REDCap access, or they can get access through UCLA CTSI?
For off-site studies, they can get access through UCLA. They will go through the same REDCap access request form. They have to fill out the information. And also, if the UCLA IRB doesn't cover the data collection, you will have to submit an IRB approval from their institution. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yes.
Can we use this application on the tablet, like on the field straight away, or do we have to collect the data manually and then enter it in the office?
It depends on whether you are collecting the data in the internal or the external REDCap. So if you are collecting in the external REDCap, I don't see a problem with the tablet as long as it has internet connection.
Okay, so it needs internet all the time.
Yes. For the external REDCap, you will want to install the Cisco AnyConnect client on your tablet. So you will need to connect to the Cisco AnyConnect VPN client before you open up the browser to connect to the internal REDCap.
So what if you are in a remote area and you don't have internet access? So you can like offline and then upload the data later?
No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to have an internet connection. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, if there are no other questions.
Oh, yeah, there's one more question.
Just real quickly,
Mhm.
your website here about the video training.
Yes.
Does that have similar information that what you had in your presentation here?
Very, very similar, but it's separated into several different videos. So it's going to take some time for you to look at it, but it gives you a more it gives you more detail than this. This is like a 1 hour, and I think the videos combined will run more than an hour on the site. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, let's thank Martin for today's presentation.
Thank you.
So Martin has agreed to share his slides with us. They will be available on the data management LibGuide, and I'll send, as long as I have your email, you will receive a link to today's slides, and also we have recorded today's session, so you will also receive a link with the video. And I just would like to announce the next two presentations that will be hosted at the library. One of them is the UC Research Exchange, which allows researchers in participating institutions to search over 12 million de-identified patient records. This presentation will be done by Dr. Bell, and we have tentatively scheduled it for November 8th at 1 p.m. That's Friday, 2 weeks. But I will confirm the date and post it on the Biomedical Library website, so make sure you check that if you're interested. And also the next Data Wednesday is going to be on November 20th, moved up because of Thanksgiving. And it's going to be on QuartZ, which is lab management freeware. So if in your lab you are wondering how to organize your samples better and keep track of who has what, this is going to be a presentation for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.